Imagine this. Your glucose isn't only reacting to what's on your plate, it's reacting to the clock. The exact minute you sip coffee, the moment you take your pill, whether you bite vegetables first or bread first, and when your insulin meets your fork can push your number up or keep it steady. If you're between 50 and 80 and your after-meal spikes or morning highs have been stubborn, I want to hand you a timing map you can put to work this week. Same medication, same dose, same foods you already eat, just better order and better minutes. Fix these 7 timing mistakes, ask your doctor about any changes you're considering, and watch what happens to your curve. Most people never hear that the order of the meal and the minutes of the medication can change a peak without touching the dose. Tonight we make timing your new lever. Let's start with why spikes tend to hit harder after 60, because understanding this turns guesswork into a plan. Post-meal peaks grow with age for a few honest reasons. We usually carry less muscle, which means our glucose sponge is smaller. Sleep can be patchier, which pushes morning hormones higher, and routines get irregular. Meals shift later, a snack creeps in at bedtime, coffee shows up before the first bite. Add the dawn phenomenon to the mix. Those early morning hormones that tell your liver to release sugar so you wake with fuel, and your baseline rises before you've had a chance to influence it. That's why timing is one of your 3 big levers. Lever 1 is when you eat. Lever 2 is what you eat first, vegetables, then protein, then starch. Lever 3 is when your medication shows up relative to the food. Put those together and you create a smoother runway for the same plane. Safety sits over all of this. Never change doses or schedules without your clinician. If you use insulin or sulfonylureas, moving times around can cause hypoglycemia or leave you too high. The point here is to notice patterns, try safe tweaks, and bring your data to your medical team for agreement and fine-tuning. Here's how to get the most out of this video. Don't overhaul your whole life at once. Pick 2 timing corrections that make sense for your situation and test them for 7 days. Each day, jot down the meal time, the medication time, the order you ate your plate, and how you felt. Check your glucose in the morning and 1 to 2 hours after your main meals while you're testing. If you see progress, keep going and show your doctor what you changed. If you feel off or numbers swing too low, back up, measure, and call. We aim for steady, not dramatic. The first mistake that quietly drives spikes is mealtime insulin that's out of sync with the food. If rapid-acting insulin goes in too late, after you've eaten and the carbs are already marching into your blood, the peak of the insulin trails behind the peak of the meal, and you get a higher spike up front and often a dip later. If it goes in far too early, and you get delayed by life, or the meal arrives late, or you lose your appetite, you risk going low before you even begin to eat. The fix is to stop thinking of insulin as separate from the plate and start thinking of it as part of the plate's timing. Many people, in partnership with their clinicians, use a modest pre-bolus window so the insulin and the first forkful reach their peaks together. The safe window isn't the same for everyone. Insulin type, your digestion speed, and the composition of the meal matter. A classic simple meal with clear carbs might need insulin a short time before the first bite, while a slow, high-fat meal, think pizza night, delays stomach emptying so the glucose peak is later, and giving insulin too early can make you crash before the carbs show up. That's why you don't freestyle changes alone. You bring this idea to your doctor or diabetes educator and say, "Can we test a small pre-bolus for my usual dinner, and what should I do when the meal is high-fat or slow?" At the table, You pair that plan with a vegetable first bite and protein second, starch last. It's a simple choreography: vegetables to slow the start, protein to give muscles something to work with, and insulin showing up in the right minutes so it's there when the starch arrives. You'll feel the difference long before your meter tells you. The second mistake is taking an alpha-glucosidase inhibitor like Acarbose or Miglitol at the wrong time. These medicines work right at the top of your digestive tract to slow the breakdown of complex carbs. If you swallow the pill after the meal, or take it with a meal that barely has any carbohydrate at all, you blunt its purpose and your peak rises. The fix is genuinely simple, but it's the part that gets missed. Take it with the very first bite of the meal that contains carbohydrate, literally the first forkful. Not at the end, not after I finish cooking, not when I remember. The first bite. Confirm this with your doctor and write it on a sticky note on the pill bottle if you must. If your dinner is mostly protein and vegetables with a tiny starch at the end, it still counts as a carbohydrate-containing meal. Ask your clinician if your dose or timing should change. You'll be amazed how this tiny shift matters. The third mistake is taking a medication that pushes insulin out, like a sulfonylurea, or using scheduled insulin while skipping, delaying, or shrinking the meal far below what the dose expects. A medicine that stimulates insulin release without food to pair with it can leave you hungry, shaky, and reaching for a fast carbohydrate rescue 15 to 45 minutes later. That rebound turns into a high spike exactly when you were trying to avoid one. The fix is a plan for real life. Set stable meal windows, and if life delays lunch or dinner, set a small, reliable bridge snack that is protein and fiber-based so the medicine has something to meet. Think a few spoonfuls of plain Greek yogurt, a hard-boiled egg with cucumber, or a small slice of cheese with a handful of baby tomatoes. No crackers, no cookies. If you know you're using a medicine that can cause hypoglycemia, ask your clinician for a written plan. What to eat if a meal will be late, when to skip or delay the dose, and what number on your meter should trigger action. The key is to avoid the nothing, then everything rhythm that drives big peaks and lows. The fourth mistake is caffeine on an empty stomach, coffee, strong tea, or yerba mate before the first bite or before your morning medication. For many people, a coffee-first habit raises cortisol and nudges the liver to release glucose. It's the hormonal partner to the dawn phenomenon. If you're sensitive to it, your fasting number looks worse and your post-breakfast curve is steeper. You don't have to give up coffee to test this. Try a small, savory first bite 10 minutes before caffeine. 3 slices of cucumber, a few leaves of lettuce with a drop of olive oil and lemon if you tolerate acid, or a few spoonfuls of plain yogurt or a hard-boiled egg. Then sip. Eat your breakfast in the vegetables protein starch order and measure your 1 to 2 hour response. Some people notice that moving coffee after a tiny starter and closer to or after breakfast flattens the curve dramatically. Others notice little difference. Your meter will tell you which group you're in. If reflux bothers you, keep acids gentle, and if coffee itself triggers symptoms, go milder and later. The fifth mistake lives in the medicine cabinet and the nightstand. Taking glucocorticoids like prednisone or decongestants that mimic adrenaline, like pseudoephedrine, late in the day or at night. Steroids raise glucose for hours by making the body more insulin resistant and telling the liver to release more sugar. Decongestants can nudge it too, especially if you're sensitive. Taken late, these can turn your evening and night into a long, shallow high, and your morning into a stubborn number. The fix is a conversation, not a guess. Ask your doctor whether your steroid can be scheduled earlier in the day and how to monitor while you're on it. Never change a steroid plan on your own. These medicines require careful tapers and medical oversight. For decongestants, ask whether a different strategy, saline rinses, inhaled steroids during the day, or plain antihistamines at appropriate times, could help your symptoms without pushing your glucose late. If you must use a decongestant, keep meals and medication timing structured, hydrate earlier, and expect to monitor more closely until the course is done. The sixth mistake is gluing fibers and thick teas right up against your pills. Psyllium, chia gels, slippery demulcent teas, and thickened herbal blends can slow gastric emptying and bind medications, delaying or lowering absorption. If you take metformin, levothyroxine, or many other morning medicines and you chase them with a scoop of psyllium or a thick mug, you may be quietly reducing the medication's punch or shifting its timing in your body. The fix is a simple spacing rule. Keep a 2-hour window between thick fibers and your medications unless your clinician tells you otherwise. That means levothyroxine with plain water first thing, breakfast later, fiber later still. It means metformin with meals as directed, fiber 2 hours away on either side. Write it down. If you use fiber at night to help your morning, keep your evening medicines 2 hours away from that scoop. It's not complicated, just consistent. The seventh mistake is a starchy bedtime snack or alcohol without food misaligned with your basal insulin. A late bowl of cereal, bread, or cookies pushes glucose up while you sleep, and if the basal is strong you can crash later and rebound high by morning. Alcohol is tricky in the opposite direction. It can lower glucose hours later by changing how the liver releases sugar, especially if you drink without food, so you can dip at night and surge by morning. Either way, your dawn number looks lousy and the whole day follows its lead. The fix is to stop thinking snack and start thinking signal. If you need a small bedtime signal, make it protein plus fiber without added sugar, plain Greek yogurt with a spoon of chia and cinnamon, cottage cheese with a sprinkle of flax, or a hard-boiled egg and a few bites of cucumber. Finish it 60 to 90 minutes before bed and keep liquids earlier in the evening so sleep is uninterrupted. As for basal insulin, align its timing with your sleep and dinner schedule in partnership with your clinician. The goal is a basal that holds you steady through the night, not one that fights with a late snack or needs a rescue at 2 a.m. Now let's give you small timing habits that quietly stack the deck in your favor. Begin your meals with vegetables for 5 to 10 minutes. A small plate of cucumber, cabbage slaw with a teaspoon of olive oil and a squeeze of lemon if you tolerate acid, or quickly sautéed greens slows the meal's entry into your bloodstream and buys your medication time to do its work. Follow with protein. Save starch for the last quarter of the plate, and keep it modest. After your main meal, especially lunch or dinner, walk for 10 to 15 minutes or putter around the house. Those minutes of movement tell your muscles to take glucose right now. Shift most of your water earlier in the day. Gallons at night lead to broken sleep, and broken sleep leads to higher glucose tomorrow. Keep your sleep schedule regular. Same bedtime, same morning light, because your hormones love rhythm. None of these moves are dramatic. They're repeatable, and repeatable is how you win. There are red flags and safety signals to respect while you experiment. If you feel sweaty, shaky, confused, suddenly irritable, or wake from vivid nightmares, consider that you may be dipping low, measure and follow your hypoglycemia plan. If numbers stay high despite effort, measure, hydrate, walk, and contact your clinician. Sometimes infection, new medicines, or other stressors are the culprit. Never shift insulin or sulfonylurea timing without a plan you've discussed. Steroid schedules and tapers are always a medical decision. Space fibers away from pills. Watch for interactions with anticoagulants, blood pressure pills, diuretics, and levothyroxine as you change meal timing and fiber habits. When in doubt, write your question down and take it to the next appointment. Your doctor would rather adjust with you than fix a preventable low or a string of highs. Let's turn this into a 7-day test you can start tonight. On days 1 and 2, focus on synchronizing your mealtime insulin with your plate and practicing the vegetables protein starch order. If your doctor has already given you a pre-bolus guideline, use it with a simple dinner and measure at 1 and 2 hours afterward. If not, write down what you did and bring your pattern to your clinician. On day 3, if you take Acarbose or Miglitol, lock in the first bite habit, pill with the first forkful of carbohydrate, and watch the post-meal peak. On day 4, push caffeine to after a small starter and closer to or after breakfast. Measure the impact. On day 5, space fibers away from medications with a full 2-hour window and note energy and digestion. On day 6, swap the starchy bedtime snack for protein plus fiber, eaten 60 to 90 minutes before bed, and keep liquids earlier. Record your fasting glucose. On day 7, schedule a medication review and ask about steroid timing if you use them or decongestants if allergy season is making you miserable. Choose the 2 habits from the week that moved your numbers the most and commit to them for another 7 days. To help you imagine this, here's a day that uses timing as a gentle tool. You wake, take levothyroxine with plain water if that's your medication, and wait as directed before breakfast. 10 minutes before your coffee, you eat 3 cucumber slices with a drop of olive oil. You brew, then eat a protein-forward breakfast, maybe a spinach and mushroom omelet, and you take metformin with the meal if that's your routine. You walk for 12 minutes after you put your plate in the sink. Lunch arrives at a steady hour. You begin with a little salad, then protein, then starch, and you take Acarbose with the first bite if it's on your list. Later, you almost reach for a decongestant, but you choose a saline rinse and earlier in the day allergy plan because you remember how late decongestants toy with your glucose. Dinner is predictable. You review your insulin timing plan from your doctor. You don't inject in the car and hope for the best. You sit, you prepare, and you align the minutes with the first bites. After dinner, you walk the hallway for 10 minutes with the phone on speaker while you talk to a friend. At 8:30, you eat a small bowl of plain Greek yogurt with a spoon of chia and a shake of cinnamon. You turn off bright screens, do a gentle calf stretch and slow breathing, and you're in bed on time. In the morning, your number is Kinder. That's not luck, that's timing in your corner. If you like specifics, here are small clarifications that often help. If your restaurant meal is delayed but you've already taken a mealtime dose, call the kitchen and ask for a small plate of vegetables first, or tuck a reliable, protein-forward bridge in your bag for moments like this. If your doctor says it's safe, plain yogurt, a small cheese, a boiled egg. If your dinner is unusually high in fat and you use insulin, remember that the carb peak may arrive later. That's a day to follow the plan you and your clinician agree on for slow meals, not a day to guess. If mornings are always high even when you eat well, measure your sleep quality and your bedtime routine. The dawn phenomenon is louder when sleep is short, when steroids are late, and when the last bites of the day were sweet and starchy. If you or your partner love dessert, make it small and move it to earlier in the day when muscles are more active, or share one portion at lunch rather than at 9 p.m. You're not banning joy, you're moving it to a better minute. As you make these changes, remember who you're doing this for. You're not trying to impress a number, you're trying to feel steadier at 10 in the morning, less drowsy after lunch, clearer in the afternoon, and more rested at dawn. Timing is a humane tool because it doesn't ask you to be hungry or perfect. It asks you to be aware. That awareness is power. It's the difference between a spike you can predict and prevent and a spike that surprises you when you've done everything right. You will have days that do not go to plan. A doctor's appointment runs late. The pharmacy line is long. A grandchild needs a ride. That's life, not failure. When those days happen, use the smallest, safest versions of the tools you've learned. Vegetables first when the meal finally comes, protein available in your bag, caffeine later, fibers spaced from pills, and honest notes you can bring to your next visit. On ordinary days, keep the routine steady. Your body loves rhythm. It pays you back with calmer numbers and calmer hunger. Let's close with the truth most people miss. Same doses, right minutes. That's the lever. If you change nothing else this week, choose one medication timing correction and one meal timing correction and give them 7 honest days. Align mealtime insulin with the plate in partnership with your doctor, or move Acarbose to the first bite, or delay caffeine until after a small savory starter, or swap the starchy bedtime snack for protein plus fiber earlier in the evening. Pair that with vegetables first, protein second, starch last, and a 10-minute walk after your main meal. Measure, right as it. Then decide what you'll keep. If your next trouble spot is the lunch peak, the one that steals your afternoon energy, there's a perfect companion waiting for you. To armor up your plate, watch the video, Top 7 Vegetables That Lower Blood Sugar in 24H for over 50. And combine those vegetables first strategies with the timing tools you learned here. Together, they turn a hard day into a smoother one. Same foods, smarter minutes, better curve.